These mysterious artifacts have been found in locations where no one's thought to look. So for today's video, I'm unveiling 15 of the most mysterious artifacts found in unexpected places. Starting with number 15, the Antikythera mechanism. So, the Antikythera mechanism, it's an astonishing artifact from ancient Greece, and it's often described as the world's oldest known analog computer. This hand-powered device was a sophisticated astronomical calculator used to predict celestial phenomena like planetary positions and eclipses decades in advance. Now, incredibly, it could even track the 4-year cycle of the ancient Olympic Games. The mechanism was discovered in 1901 among the wreckage of the shipwreck off the Greek island of Antikythera. Initially a single lump, it was later separated into 3 main fragments, and it's now comprised of 82 individual pieces. Gears and inscriptions are visible on many fragments, with the largest gear measuring an impressive 13 centimeters in diameter. These fragments are currently housed in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, alongside reconstructions to aid in understanding its function. Advanced imaging techniques like computer X-ray tomography allowed researchers to peer inside the fragments and decipher these faint inscriptions. This revealed a complex system of 37 bronze gears that tracked the movement of the sun and the moon, including the moon's irregular orbit. The inclusion of this lunar irregularity suggests that the device might have been built with the help of astronomer Hipparchus of Rhodes, who studied this phenomenon in the 2nd century BC. Some further analysis also provided inscriptions in 2016 suggest that they'd even calculated the positions of Venus and Saturn. The exact date of the Antikythera mechanism's construction is debated, with estimates ranging from about 205 BC to 87 BC. However, the shipwreck where it was found has been dated to 70 to 60 BC, so the mechanism must predate that event. This incredible device is an example of the ingenuity of Hellenistic scientists and engineers. Number 14, the Voynich manuscript. The Voynich manuscript is a mysterious, illustrated codex, handwritten in an unknown script, and it's referred to as Voychanese. Now, the vellum on which it's written has been carbon dated to the early 15th century, and stylistic analysis suggests it may have been composed in Italy during the Italian Renaissance. The origins, authorship, and purpose of the manuscript do remain fiercely debated. Hypotheses range from a natural or constructed language to an unread code, cipher, or some other form of cryptography. Some even believe it might be a hoax, a reference work, or work of fiction. Without proper translation and context, though, it's impossible to definitively eliminate any of those possibilities. The manuscript consists of about 240 pages, though some are missing. The text is written from left to right on foldable sheets of varying sizes. Most pages contain illustrations and diagrams, some crudely colored, but these illustrations depict people, strange plants, astrological symbols, and much more. The manuscript is named after Wilfrid Voynich, a Polish book dealer who purchased it in 1912, and since 1969 it's been held in Yale University's Benneke Rare Book and Manuscript Library. This manuscript has been studied extensively by both professional and amateur cryptographers, including codebreakers from World War I and II, and despite their efforts, the manuscript's secrets remain unsolved. However, the puzzling details of the illustrations have fueled speculation about the book's origin, content, and purpose. Notably, astrological considerations were often used in herb gathering and medical practices during the time period. Number 13, the Shroud of Turin. The Shroud of Turin, also called the Holy Shroud, is a linen cloth with a faint image of a man's front and back. Now, many people, especially in the Catholic Church, believe it to be the burial cloth of Jesus of Nazareth, with his image miraculously imprinted on it. The human figure on the shroud is clearer in the black and white photo negative than it is in its natural sepia color. Now, this effect was discovered by Secondo Pia in 1898 when he took the first photos of the shroud. The shroud's documented history dates back to 1354, when it was shown in a village in France. The House of Savoy acquired it in 1453 and moved it into a chapel in Cambrai, where it was damaged by fire in 1532. Then in 1578 it was transferred to Turin, where it stayed since. It's been kept in the Chapel of the Holy Shroud, now designed by Gorano Guarini since 1683. The shroud became the property of the Catholic Church after the death of former King Umberto II in 1983. Then, in 1978, Walter McCrone examined shroud samples and concluded that the image was painted with red ochre pigment in a gelatin medium, and that the bloodstains were made with vermilion pigment. However, other researchers disputed McCrone's findings, and the true nature of the image is still debated. The shroud's authenticity as a relic of Jesus is not officially endorsed or rejected by the Catholic Church. Number 12. Stone spheres. The stone spheres of Costa Rica are over 300 spherical stones found in a delta on the island of Caño. It's known locally as bolas de piedra. These spheres are attributed to the extinct Diqui culture, and they're sometimes called the Diqui spheres. They're best known as stone sculptures in the Istmo-Colombian area, and some believe these spheres were placed in lines leading to the houses of the chiefs, but their exact purpose is unknown. Some archaeologists suggest that the spheres may represent solar systems or different phases of the sun and moon. Farm number 6, an archaeological site, dates back to the Aguas Buenas period, and it was a multifunctional site with a settlement, cemetery, and monumental architecture. This site includes mounds built with river cobbles filled with earth, and it contains large stone spheres in their original positions, and many of the spheres were moved from their original positions and now serve as a landscape decoration. The National Museum stores returned spheres at this site. Local myths and legends surrounding the spheres, some believe they came from Atlantis or were naturally formed. Others say native inhabitants had a potion to soften rock. In ancestral groups, the stone spheres are Tara's cannonballs. Tara is the god of thunder, used a giant blowpipe to shoot the balls at the Serkis, the god of winds and hurricanes, to drive them away. Well, it's often claimed that these spheres are nearly perfect in roundness, too. Number 11. Göbekli Tepe, Turkey. Göbekli Tepe is a Neolithic archaeological site in southeastern Turkey, known for its large circular structures with massive stone pillars, the world's oldest known megaliths. Many pillars are decorated with carvings of animals and human-like figures, offering rare insights into prehistoric religion. The site dates back to the dawn of the Southwest Asian Neolithic period, marking the appearance of the oldest permanent human settlements. This period is linked to the advent of agriculture, though it's debated whether farming caused people to settle down or the other way around. Göbekli Tepe, built on a rocky mountaintop, has no clear evidence of farming, adding to this debate. And current excavators interpret this site as a settlement based on recent finds like domestic structures, water installations, and tools. However, Klaus Schmidt, the original excavator, viewed it as a sanctuary used by nomadic hunter-gatherers with no permanent inhabitants. The exact purpose of the megalithic enclosures remains unknown, though Schmidt described them as, quote, the world's first temples, end quote. The site was first noted in 1963, and Schmidt began excavations in 1995. Number 10. The Dead Sea Scrolls. So the Dead Sea Scrolls, they're also known as the Qumran Cave Scrolls. They're ancient Jewish manuscripts from the Second Temple period. They were discovered between 1946 and 56 at the Qumran Caves near the Dead Sea. Now, these scrolls date from the 3rd century BCE to the 1st century CE. They include the oldest surviving manuscripts of books later included in the biblical canons, along with other religious texts from late Second Temple Judaism. These scrolls shed some light on the emergence of Christianity and Rabbinic Judaism. Almost all of the 15,000 scrolls and fragments are held in the Shrine of the Book at the Israel Museum in Jerusalem, and most manuscripts are written in Hebrew, with some in Aramaic and a few in Greek. They are primarily written on parchment, with some on papyrus and one on copper. While most scrolls date from the 3rd century BCE to the 1st century CE, associated manuscripts from the Judean desert sites range from the 8th to the 11th century CE. Well, bronze coins found at the site support that dating of the scrolls. The scrolls fall into 3 groups. About 40% are copies of texts from Hebrew scriptures, 30% are texts from the Second Temple period that were not canonized in the Hebrew Bible, and the rest are sectarian manuscripts. These include documents that reveal the beliefs and rules of a particular Jewish sect, such as the Community Rule, the War Scroll, and the Pesher on the Habakkuk. Number 9. The Big Circles, Jordan. The Big Circles are 12 giant stone structures spread across Jordan and Syria. Now, despite being over 2,000 years old, they have received little archaeological attention and remain largely unknown. A British pilot named Lionel Rees discovered the circles in 1920 while flying over the deserts of what is now Jordan. His photographs were among the earliest aerial archaeological images, but his findings were ignored and forgotten for decades. It wasn't until the last 10 years that David Kennedy, a researcher at the University of Western Australia, brought more attention to the Big Circles. They're built of low stone walls just a few feet high and are nearly circular, ranging from 720 to over 1,200 feet across. Originally, they had no openings, although some walls have crumbled over time. 2 circles of Roman roads cutting through them, indicating they're over 2,000 years old, but they could be much older. The circles, according to Kennedy, could have been built easily using local rocks by a dozen people working for a week. However, their purpose remains a mystery. It's unlikely they were used as cattle pens because the walls were too low to contain animals, and there's no need for animal pens to be precisely shaped. Of the 12 circles, 8 are in the west-central Jordan area between Wadi al-Hassa and the edge of the Shara escarpment, and 4 are just north of the Azraq oasis. A more recent big circle was also spotted in Syria. Number 8. The Dropa Stones. The Dropa Stones are claimed to be pseudo-archaeological artifacts. Now, allegedly, they're 12,000-year-old granite discs with inscriptions telling of an extraterrestrial crash landing on Earth. However, there are no records of these stones in any museum, nor the people supposedly involved in their discovery and translation. Over time, more fictional details have been added to the story. According to the earliest version of this tale, published in July 1962 in a German magazine, an archaeological expedition led by Chipuf Te found 716 granite discs with tiny hieroglyphic-like markings in the Bayan Har Mountains in 1937. The discs were said to be 12,000 years old. Now, the site allegedly contains star maps and remains of beings with thin bodies and large heads. Well, after decades of work, Chinese archaeologists and linguists supposedly translated the markings, concluding they were made by extraterrestrials after a crash landing. These findings were published by Sum Nui, but were met with ridicule. Sum reportedly left for Japan and died shortly after. The discs are sometimes claimed to be up to 30 centimeters in diameter with 2 grooves, forming a double spiral from a central hole, with hieroglyphs inscribed within the grooves. In 1966, a Russian republished the story in the Soviet magazine Sputnik, adding that some discs were sent to Moscow, where they were found to contain cobalt and other materials, that they acted as an electrical conductor and produced a humming sound when placed on a special turntable. Well, in 1974, Austrian engineer Ernst Wegener claimed to have seen 2 Dropa stones in a museum in Shanxi, China, and he said he was allowed to photograph them but received no information. By 1994, the discs could no longer be found. Moving on to number 7, the Utah Monolith. The Utah Monolith was a metal pillar that stood in a red sandstone slot canyon in northern San Juan County, Utah. This pillar, made of metal sheets riveted together, was 3 meters tall. It was illegally placed on public land between July and October of 2016 and went unnoticed for over 4 years until its discovery and removal in late 2020. The identity and motives of its creators are unknown. Utah state biologists discovered the monolith in November of 2020 during a helicopter survey of wild bighorn sheep. After its discovery, the public located the pillar using GPS mapping software and visited the remote site. Following intense media coverage, 4 residents of Moab, Utah, covertly removed the monolith on November 27, 2020. It was later handed over to the Bureau of Land Management, where it is currently kept. After the monolith's discovery, over 200 similar metal columns appeared worldwide, created by local artists as imitations. Photos and videos of the monolith were released on November 23rd, but its location was kept secret due to safety concerns. Number 6. America's Stonehenge. America's Stonehenge, located in Salem, New Hampshire, is a tourist attraction and archaeological site with rocks and stone structures scattered over 30 acres. It's open to the public and features snowshoe trails and an alpaca farm. The origin and purpose of the structures are debated. Some believe they resulted from local farmers' land use practices in the 18th and 19th centuries and constructions by William Goodwin, who purchased the area in 1937. Others claim a pre-Columbian European origin, though this is considered pseudo-archaeology. And archaeologist David Starbuck stated that the Goodwin likely created much of what is visible today. While originally called Mystery Hill, the site was renamed America's Stonehenge in 1982 to emphasize its archaeological significance. Radiocarbon dating analysis of this charcoal shows human occupation about 4,000 years ago, and in 1982, David Stewart Smith's excavation found evidence of tool manufacture by indigenous stone workers. Some speculate the structures form an astronomical calendar predicting lunar and solar events. Number 5. The Windover Archaeological Site. The Windover Archaeological Site is a Middle Archaic site in Brevard County, Florida, and a National Historic Landmark. It's a muck pond where the skeletal remains of 168 individuals were found buried in peat, preserving the bones and brain tissue of 91 skulls, which have been sequenced for DNA. The collection is one of the largest from the Archaic period and considered highly important. Discovered in 1982 during road construction, the site yielded bones dated to over 7,200 years old. The developers had halted construction, donated equipment, and preserved the pond for excavation. The remains included bones of males and females of all ages, with children making up half. This site provides significant insight into early human life in this region. Number 4. The Underwater River. The Black Sea Undersea River is a current of salty water flowing through the Bosphorus Strait into the Black Sea. Now, announced on August 1, 2010 by University of Leeds scientists, it was the first discovered undersea river. Formed about 7,500 years ago, it stems from salty Mediterranean water spilling into the less salty Black Sea. Using the Natural Environment Research Council's AutoSub 3, scientists explored the river, which is 37 miles long and up to 35 meters deep and just over a half-mile wide. Though smaller than the Amazon River, it carries 10 times more water than the Rhine and has features like riverbanks, floodplains, and rapids. The undersea's river current moves opposite to those on land when rounding a bend. Number 3. The Baghdad Battery. The Baghdad Battery consists of a ceramic pot, a copper tube, and an iron rod discovered in Iraq in 1936. Dating to the Parthian or Sasanian periods, its origin and purpose are unclear. Wilhelm Koenig hypothesized it functioned as a galvanic cell for electroplating, but no electroplated objects from this period are known, and this theory is largely rejected. An alternative theory suggests it was a storage vessel for sacred scrolls. The jar containing a copper cylinder and an iron rod showed evidence of acidic agents like wine or vinegar, leading to speculation about its use as a battery. Post-World War II experiments with reconstructions produced electric currents using grape juice or vinegar, supporting the battery theory. Number 2. The Nazca Lines. The Nazca Lines are geoglyphs in the Nazca Desert in southern Peru. They were created between 500 BC and 500 AD. They were made by removing the top layer of pebbles to reveal the lighter soil underneath. These lines form shapes that are best seen from the air. The lines are over 1,300 kilometers and include geometric shapes, animals, plants, and human figures. Scholars believe the lines had religious significance. They were first mentioned by Pedro Cieza de Leon in 1553, and they were designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1994. Now, despite its natural preservation, the lines have been deteriorating due to squatters. Recent discoveries using drones suggest more figures do remain hidden. Number 1. The Terracotta Army. The Terracotta Army is a collection of sculptures depicting the armies of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. It's a form of funerary art buried with the emperor in around 200 BCE with the purpose of protecting him in his afterlife. The figures vary in height according to their rank, and the tallest being the generals. They were discovered in 1974, and they include warriors, chariots, and horses. Estimates from 2007 were that there were 3 pits containing the Terracotta Army, that they hold more than 8,000 soldiers, 130 chariots, 520 horses, and 150 cavalry horses. Other non-military figures have been found in other pits, including officials, acrobats, strongmen, and musicians. For centuries, occasional reports mentioned pieces of terracotta figures and fragments of the Qin necropolis, roofing tiles, bricks, and chunks of masonry too. This discovery prompted Chinese archaeologists to investigate, revealing the largest pottery figurine group ever found. The construction of the tomb was described by historian Sima Chan in the Records of the Grand Historian, the first of China's 24 dynastic histories, written a century after the mausoleum's completion. He wrote that the first emperor was buried with palaces, towers, officials, valuable artifacts, and wondrous objects. While according to his account, 100 flowing rivers were simulated using mercury, and above them the ceiling was decorated with heavenly bodies, below which lay the features of the land. Some translations of this passage refer to models or imitations. A museum complex now covers the area, and an ongoing excavation continues to reveal more about this monumental find. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time. Thank you to our channel members.